What's up, everybody? We are here at the Throw Show, and we are fortunate enough to have Josh Cinnamo, the world champion, world record holder in the F46. Josh, thanks for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
In the shot
Good
put.
to finally be on the show.
Yeah, and I should mention in the shot put, I'm very bad at keeping focus during introductions. I think I did that with Deanna Price. It was like, world champion in what? I don't know.
Well,
So
everybody knows what she's doing by now.
yeah, he's a stud. So, Josh, for those of us who don't know, I know,
Yep.
but for those out there that don't know who you are,
Yep.
you know, in 2017, so you're a para games of, I think what schools was one of the first times that you talked to me, like, I want to throw, I think it was 18 meters in the shot to try and, basically conquer the adaptive world of track and field. And so 2017, you did not podium. You're like 36, I think, at the time, if I remember, or 35 at the time. And since 2017, you've sort of made this big rise and you've broken the world record. And now you are not only the holder of the world record, but you also won the world championships in 2019 in Dubai. And so I want to, bring that up so people are aware, because I think that's something that's sort of lacking, is that a lot of people don't pay attention, or they don't engage with the adaptive world as well as they can. But just to give you that introduction there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I'm a thrower in the F46, and F46 is just one of a variety of classifications in Paralympic sport. 46 has to do with arm issues. Mine is a congenital arm amputation, which just means congenital just means you were born with that chronic illness or chronic issue. So that's what I compete in shot put. There are so many of them. There's visually impaired and all these things, and I think sometimes we get mixed up with mental issues, psychological issues, those kinds of things. And I really want to separate what the physical issues are versus Special Olympics. They're two very different sports. Neither is less than the other. And as a matter of fact, I think if you've ever been to a Special Olympics event, it'll probably change your life more than anything that you've ever seen. So, and I think my story, particularly before 2017, I started doing Paralympic shot put in 2014, and it was really just on a whim. I was looking for something to do. I'd been doing CrossFit for a couple of years before that. And I thought, gosh, I spent all my life trying to get involved with sports. It made me feel like I was closer to the other people around me. And I just needed competition again. And so I looked online and I was like, well, what are some things I've done in my past that I can get involved with? And in this scenario, I just said, well, track and field was something I enjoyed. It was something that I could do on my own. I didn't need a team. And so I went to a Gateway to Gold event, which is basically a combine for track and field athletes for parasport. And I went and destroyed it, really. I mean, they'd really not seen somebody that had the kind of power and speed and stuff that I had. I'm not saying that I'm the greatest Paralympic athlete of all time. I'm not.
They saw your back squat and they were like, dude, what are you doing? You need to start throwing.
Yeah, probably. What are you taking? But I went to that event and they said, you got to get involved with sport. Come to the national meet. And this was in 2014. So I go to that meet. I break the American record for the shot put, the disc, and the javelin. And, so now I'm really involved because I'm invested in what's happened and what I've done. And I think, okay, 2015 is a huge year. It's here in St. Paul. They're having the nationals. They're going to go and select a team for Worlds and for Pan Ams. So that was Toronto and Doha, I think. And I ended up missing the team by one slot.
Okay.
And, I was really pissed off at Paralympic track and field and Paralympics in general. And I thought, well, how in the world do you have somebody that's, I personally looking at myself saying, as good as I am, how could you skip me? How could you pass me over? In hindsight, knowing I just didn't do enough. I didn't throw enough. I didn't lift enough. I just didn't prepare myself enough to be on the team. And I promised myself that was the very last time that was going to happen. And so I spent the next 2 years in a weight room just trying to get as strong as I could. And leading into 2017, I hadn't really even thrown. But again, on a whim, my wife was like, are you going to do any more? And I was like, well, maybe I'll give it one last go, just see what happens. And I entered a Grand Prix event and PR'd by a couple of feet. And someone at Paralympics noticed, and they invited me to the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, and that's the week I broke the world record. So, you know, I'd thrown maybe 20 shots in between when I finished in 2015 and when I broke the record in 2017.
So it was basically just like the work you were doing in the weight room at that time, and then probably a little bit of anger, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of emotion in it. I mean, it really ticked me off being old enough to understand and see the context of it all, and looking at myself from the outside saying, you just didn't do enough. Mm-hmm. Like, how could you embarrass yourself in front of your family who's here, you know, in St. Paul, which is where I live, Minneapolis, St. Paul is where I live. And all these people were there to see me. And I felt like I embarrassed myself in front of them. And I was like, that's not going to happen again. I can promise you. So, yeah, I mean, but a lot of it was just getting in the weight room. I hadn't touched a free weight until I was 30 years old. I'm 39 now. So everything that I've done in the weight room has happened in the last decade.
You didn't start lifting until you were 30?
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Josh will troll me. Sometimes I'll post like a video of me squatting or whatever, and he might DM me with like, yeah, that's cute. And then he sends me a back squat video with like 900 pounds on your back. So I guess what was it really? I mean, at that time in 2017, were you still gliding at that point?
Yes. Yeah. So when they invited me out to the training center, I'd worked with Larry before, but this is when I really started working with Larry Judge, who's my coach. And we spent that week, man, I mean, I didn't know that, obviously he didn't know that's what I was going to end up doing that week. So we worked hard. I mean, we were going twice a day. I hadn't thrown that much ever probably. And by the time we got to the end of the week, he was like, why don't you take a day off? And so, yeah, I mean, I was gliding. It was one of those high performance meets where hardly anybody was in it. So I got to, you know, some repetitious throws in there, and yeah, I mean, it was cool.
So I think that, I mean, now thinking back to when you and I first started talking, I think you did send a video into throws you to me, and you're like, hey, you know, I want to get your opinion. Like, do you think I should spin? Do you think I should glide? And you were one of the first para guys that I did an analysis for. I think at the time I had talked with David Blair a couple times.
Yeah.
And I even mentioned some of the stuff he does technique wise. I pointed out to people that, and same with, of course, I'm going to freaking have a mind fart.
Alad?
Yeah. Alad.
Yeah.
Same with Alad and how he finishes the throw specifically. Now, I never did an analysis of him, but watching Alad Davies compete in his finish and how we like to use it. So when you had sent that in, it not only were you adaptive, but you're left-handed. So I'm sitting there like, it was a challenge, but I remember going back and forth, like, but knowing, you know, you could spin. And now, I guess, walk us through that and the struggles that brought to your career, because I think a lot of high school kids, I mean, that's like the never ending. And that was my issue in college, was like, I always, you know, I was a glider. I threw 1746 as a freshman with the glide. But I always, and I spun, but I always wanted to go back. And it's sort of like, how did you deal with that aspect, along with the fact that, you know, at that time, you know, so you barely missed the podium in 17, and then you not only are you starting to train a lot more frequently, but you're dealing with what's your technique going to be?
Yeah, and I think it started with aiming towards 2020, which was how do we, now that you've made a name for yourself and we know you can throw, how do we get some longevity out of you? I was a little bit older, and now I am 39, and I'll be 40 next summer when we go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
So it's really about how do I put the least amount of stress on my body, which has already been stressed, right? I mean, my shoulder and my elbow and all these things are already doing twice as much as they probably would have been in any other scenario. But right before, so I threw shot in London at the World Championships, and the next day, Larry and I were out in the practice rings working on spinning, just trying to figure out if it was something that I should get into. And once we got home, that's when I messaged you, and I was just like, man, I just need somebody else to to see what's going on and to take a look at my athletic ability, because you can tell a lot, even if it looks like crap, which it did. You can tell if somebody can move a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so.
And
By the way,
thing,
you were wrong. I think you told me I should stick with the glide because I was.
Did I really?
Yeah.
I think part of it. I was just going to point this out. I think part of it was too. That's hysterical. Is that I remember looking at you and thinking like, dude, you're a powerhouse. Like, you just smashed the shit out of it. So it's like, and I think that that's also something that has to come into play is like seeing your lifts and then also seeing you move. You knew like, dude, you're a stud. Like physically, you're gifted. So I think that's that was maybe that's my excuse for having you stick in my mind stick with the glide.
No, you know what? But everything that you said in that video is absolutely true. It just happened to be like, okay, the final straw was how do I stay healthy? And I knew if I threw glide, I just wasn't going to be able to stay healthy. It's just too hard to do. It's too hard on your body. And so that's kind of how we ultimately came up with what we were doing. And through this year, I mean, Larry and I had some big time goals, and the only one we didn't make was 17 meters, which we said we would do. And so we were 20 centimeters off of that. Otherwise, we took over everything we said we wanted to do. So.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, it's huge. And on top of that, the fact is that guy from Canada, I swear, is like 7'3". Like the dude looks like
that's Dylan Armstrong's guy, man. He's 7'2", he's 7'2", 350 pounds.
That's just insane how big he is.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I wish I could hate him, but he's the nicest guy ever. Like you get to the ring and he's chit-chatting you, and he's a great guy. I really do like him a lot.
So as far as the you adapt, you change into the spin. Lay out now. Okay, you're trying. Let's say 2018, building towards now 2021. How many days a week are you spinning? How many days a week are you lifting? And then on top of that, I even want to talk about the role of your right side and not having that limb, and how that factors into the technical movement, and how you deal with that. I mean, as a counterbalance, essentially, not being there.
Well, we went from 2017. So once we got done with the shot at Worlds in 2017, I didn't have a break until November 16th of this year, or last year, 2019.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely had to work at it every single day for the last 2 years, because going from the glide to the spin, unless you have some inherent talent, it takes a long time to get it. You only get one piece, and when you get one piece, you break another piece.
Yeah.
And so a lot of 2018 was just breaking everything, just trying to get the back set up. And it really took all of 2018 and probably part of 2019 to get the back set up. And then once we did that, the rest of it started to work pretty well. But now the middle's kind of broken, right? And my foot's kind of instead of taking a nice clean spin around. Taman knows, right?
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with the same thing, right? So it's just, but it's been a long haul. It's been 2 years, and we worked at it probably 5 or 6 days a week that we're throwing, and then 4 or 5 days of lifting, just depending on what part of the season it was in.
Right. And I guess that sort of leads into that question with the counterbalance, because even this morning I'm discussing this with Legend, is that I'll cue with the people who throw with the right side. That left arm will open, and it opens, and I like to actually think about it as that when that left arm opens, the right knee and the right heel will rotate with it, and then the shot will come through, or the discus will come through. And I think that, walk us through, because it's difficult for me to feel what you are going to feel because you don't have the right arm. So do you still, can you think about opening the right side? Can you think about opening that right side while still keeping that left side back? Or are you going to be a little bit more focused on your trunk and your legs, or is it, am I looking too deep at it?
It's No, no, no. I mean, it was one of the hard questions to deal with at the beginning, because what happens is with the shorter lever, it is turning faster, whether you like it or not.
Right, 100%.
And I tell everybody to do it, because people ask, you know, is it really harder for you to throw the shot than somebody who has both their hands? And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I tell them to take their extended arm and just fold it in
Right.
and try to throw. And what happens is their shoulder and everything dips right into the middle because it's moving so much faster. And so that was really what we had to set up. And it was really by closing those scaps together and just leaving them there, and leaving it all there, and trying to stay as wide as I could for as long as I could until I hit the middle, and then kind of keep it at that zero degree. And then, fire it wide open. Because then it does do me some favors, right? Because now I can really swing it wide open real fast.
That's
and then
true.
Finish.
That is true, yeah.
So as much of it as that it's a pain in the butt at the start of the throw, it is helpful towards the end.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's part of why I can strike the shot so well when I'm striking well.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you think about, and I think this is one thing with, talking with Alad was, and I said, dude, his finish and the way his left leg moves to the front, it's funny because as soon as I start thinking about him, I was about to start swearing, because I think back to the conversations I've had with him, and he says the F word like every other word.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I love about his technique is how well his left leg rotates his upper body. It's like that's something that is, I think, the hardest thing to think about. And then, Taman sitting behind me, he might actually agree with me. But that was something I wanted to ask you, is it valuable for you to think about? And I watch your stories that you post on Instagram. So I see the drills and stuff that you're doing. And it's like, do you just think about the left side, or are you trying to think about the left and then what the right leg's doing? Or is it like, I got to get that left leg and that left foot to rotate a little bit more effectively, so I'm really not even thinking about the right? Or how do you approach that middle part? Because right now, that's what you said. You alluded to that's being one of your issues right now.
Yeah. The couple of cues that we have that really work for me, which is, and again, I'm a left-handed thrower, so get my left past my right faster, and then I can get off my right.
Yeah.
But if I can't get it across, then it's going to be slow, or I'm going to rotate my right knee, and then I'm just going to fall out and be in the bucket and miss anyway. So it's really about getting my left across first. Just thinking about that, because inherently you're going to get off your right if your left's already going past, right? Because you're going to be off balance. You're going to need to move.
Yeah.
And then being active with my hips. I can tell when I'm actually trying to activate my hips and turn them in the middle. Then I don't have that problem with having my right come down late, because my hips are already rotating. But that's something that I still have to actively think about as I start the throw. Like, turn your hips, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a perfect thrower yet. A lot of things get messed up because I'm in my head still at the start of the throw. In practice, for certain, I'm thinking about 5 different cues, or I'm thinking about what I want to do, or I'm being a stupid thrower, which is, God, I hope this thing goes far. If it doesn't go far, I suck. All those things pass through your brain, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. It's like, that's and I think that's important for everybody to hear too. Is like, dude, you're a world record holder. You're a world champ. You've been at the peak of your sport, and you still are acknowledging like that is normal to be the dumb thrower, like the meathead thrower, where you're just like, you want to, just lose your mind. I think that's something that, it's almost like everybody thinks that doesn't exist. And then once you're at that world-class level, and it's like, no, everybody's dealing with it. So when you are, in high school or in college and you're frustrated, you've got to recognize, one, it's part of the sport. And the sooner you figure out that mechanism to deal with it, the better it's going to be long-term.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean, those kids see everyone's best throw. No one posts their shittiest throw on there.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Step all over the board, nearly fall over.
Analysis.
Yeah.
Then everybody's like, "Hey, why are you always analyzing my worst throws?" Well, because that's the
one you got to get fixed, man. Yeah, no, they need to see those.
And I think so. That actually, I mean, this is a little off topic, Josh, but you know, you talked to me. You've sent me videos of your son throwing, and you've seen Lincoln throwing, and it's like,
Yeah.
here's a question, and this is like a coaching / athlete question: is what's the way that you can get a thrower to sort of come up with that more logical approach that, look, you're not throwing far because of a technical error or because of training and you're fatigued, you know, and you've got to approach it from a logical point of view instead of that
Yeah.
emotional response. You know, what do you think, you know, with your own son throwing and knowing that you're the best in the world, how can you take that and say, like, hey, you know, don't respond like a meat,
Yep.
respond logically.
Yeah. So this is what I do, and it started, and I'm sure you keep throws from whomever. I keep basically one throw from every day, and so it's April, whatever it is, April 20th or 19th. What I do is go back 1 year. So when I'm starting to feel shitty, when I throw shitty, I
Yeah.
go back a year and I look at that and I go, nope, we're doing just fine.
Yeah.
We're way ahead of where that was. That guy couldn't throw very far, or look at that, his technique's terrible.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
just kind of get myself back in the groove of thinking, okay, I'm not bad. I'm having a day that, maybe I'm coming off a heavy lift or whatever it is, and we just got to get back to thinking about one or two cues that we always think about and slow down.
Right.
That's always the big one, right? Do what you're supposed to do. Do the things you're supposed to do and just slow down. So it's really about, even with Tate, my son, I just show him because, of course, as a young kid, he gets all upset if it doesn't go past the longest line, the longest mark.
Yeah.
And I just say, dude, here, look at what you did. Look at all the good things you did. And then
Right.
he gets excited about doing those things well, and he wants to do some more. So, yeah, it's really about just kind of logging what you've done and where you've come from, because day to day it's really hard to see, especially when you're throwing heavy shots or you're throwing light shots or whatever. The line kind of goes like this, and you got to be able to step back a little bit to see it from. And I record what happens for the year. I don't record every day how far the throws are, but my season in terms of meets, all that's logged. My mean for the season, the disparity between my shortest throw and my longest throw and all that kind of stuff. Right? So I get a good look at what's actually happening. I may feel like I suck, but if the mean for the year is up a meter, well, what am I complaining about?
Right.
The margin for error is now getting shorter. It's getting smaller. So I understand I'm being hard on myself, but I also have to realize that we're in this piece of the pie that's really hard to perfect, and to continue to try to beat yourself up over it's ridiculous. Nobody is perfected it.
Right. So I have two main questions now. Is that one is that I got a technical question and I got a question for the Olympics getting pushed back for you. So it's like,
ask them separately. I'm not that smart.
You what?
Ask them separately. I'm not smart enough to remember.
Okay, so how about this? Give me. Let's do the Olympic stuff first. You're training for you're training for 2020, and you're sitting here going, all right, we're gonna go to Tokyo. I'm gonna try and defend my world championship title. I want to win the Olympics. I want to break the world record at the Olympics. I want to be, I want to do the coolest thing ever, right? And you're training after that long, basically the longest track season ever, throwing all the way till I think November. And now you come back and it's like, how, like, coronavirus is real, it exists, it happens, and the Tokyo gets bumped back to 2021. So now, what does that do for you, especially because you're older, you got a family, and you've got another job, you're not just a thrower full time. How did you handle it, and how does that change where you're at individually with your training progress, and what are you doing to alter that moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly, first call I made once it got canceled was to Larry, and just to kind of figure out what we want the schedule to look like. Where, if we look at next year being where we're going, how does the calendar shift for us? And now, instead of getting in the heat of battle, here at the start of spring and moving into big meets, it's the off season.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of doing GPP stuff at this point. You and I were working together.
Yep.
Obviously, because we were trying to get the season off to a good start. And I've backed off of that a little bit just because of the way Larry wants to organize the calendar for the year. I am more fortunate, I think, than most of the athletes. I'm sitting in my own garage gym. I have all that. I got heat here. I can do whatever I want. I have a ring in my backyard to throw in. So my training, what I can do for training hasn't changed at all, but certainly the amount of lifting I'm doing, the amount of throwing I'm doing is different. Yeah, I'm older, and I think it doesn't benefit me to be a year older, but I'm not concerned about it. I'm still progressing. I'm still throwing farther. And until my body tells me I can't do that, I'm not going to worry about it. And it's not going to matter, right? I mean, between now and then, somebody could come and throw 19, 20 meters. Who knows, right?
Right. It's almost like, too, as long as David's still throwing, it's like, oh, well, if Blair's still throwing, I can hang.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, his back was basically broken and when we were in Dubai. So
yeah, and he come out. What did he get? Third, I think. Second.
Oh, he finished second.
Yeah, second.
Yeah, he bombed one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so how about before we get into the technique, let's actually talk about cool stuff. Like, give us your weight room numbers. Walk through your best numbers in the top 5 lifts or top 3 lifts and what that means. You know, how you progress with those.
Okay, yeah. So I have squatted 605. I've power cleaned 345. That's also my bench. Bench is 345. I've snatched 235. These are all pounds because I don't know kilos. What else? I never deadlift. The only deadlifting I do is through my Olympic lifts. I just don't find it to be beneficial, honestly. What other lifts are there? Snatch, clean, bench,
squat. I mean, I think that's. I think, and explain. You know, you say you bench 345.
Yeah.
Explain to everybody how you know, because you don't have your right limb. How do you set up to do a power snatch, or how do you set up to do a clean?
So I have essentially what it is just a ring strap, like a Rogue Fitness ring strap. So something you'd use to hang on rings. And when I started in CrossFit, everything I did in CrossFit the first 4 years was all with a kettlebell. And then all of a sudden I was just like, okay, I got to figure out a way to pick up a barbell. It's just too, it just seems like too cool of an activity for me not to get involved in. Mm-hmm. So I cut down this strap and I just started doing deadlifts with it. And I was like, oh, that works. That's not too bad. And then just on a whim again one day, I was like, well, maybe if I try to flip it over, we'll just see what happens, see if I can do a clean with it. So that's what happened. And that's a big lesson for me looking back over the past decade, which is just crawl, walk, run. Right. I'd never done that anywhere in my life before. And all of a sudden, it was like, yeah, you got to start with that bell. You got to start with the kettle. You got to do all your cleans, your snatches, everything you do, you got to do with that. And so, it took a couple of years to do that, and then a couple of years with the barbell. Now, anybody who's seen me snatch, it's pretty scary looking, but for the most part, I've done enough of those repetitions, right? It's not really that big a deal anymore.
Right.
So,
and I think that's another lesson right there. Is like it's, you sit there and you're trying to figure out how can you be a better athlete. You're going to experiment. You're going to play around. You're going to try and you're going to try to learn from an experience, and if it sucks, you fixed it. And it's like, you go multiple years of just playing with a kettlebell. It's like, dude, I got to do something else. And I think that's another aspect that a lot of people they miss, especially in the throwing world. I mean, in everything, right? But it's like, put yourself out there and try to figure out, is this going to work? And if it doesn't work, well, it's not the end of the world either, but it could get you to start cleaning. It could get you to freaking. How do you power clean 345?
Well, I think part of it, Dane, is that people just don't stick with things very long. Yeah. They hit the adversity part of it and they go, I'm not going to do it. It's just too hard. Or I'll just move on to something that's easier that seems more likable on Instagram or whatever. They just don't stick with it long enough. And in throwing, if you want to excel, you got to stick with it for a long time.
Right.
Out of maturing and all that other stuff, you just got to stick with it. So.
No, that's
everything that we do. There's no lying in the things that we do. You have to lift, and if you don't lift, everyone will know it. And if you don't throw, then everybody will know it, right? I mean, it's just you have to prove it. And I think that's it's the hardest part and it's the best part of our sport, I think.
Yeah, is that it's it's as simple as this. You want to be a better thrower? Go throw one throw today, and then in 9,000 more throws, you might be better. And
Yeah,
that's it.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's that hard.
yeah,
You wanna throw farther? Well, okay, let's take 10,000 throws and let's get you to squat 605 pounds. Like that. Now we might be
yeah,
talking, and that's the whole thing. It's
yep.
like, we actually just posted the video of Gary Gubner, or I talked about him, and it's like these were guys back in the 60s and the 50s that what do? They snatch to a max, they bench to a heavy triple, and then they'd take 60 throws. And it's like the guy threw 20 meters in 1962. It's like, well, it's not that hard.
Right.
So it's like and I do. I mean, I almost feel at fault where I'm always trying to look at all the little things and little details that we can fix. And at the end of the day, it is just freaking throw. Just try and experiment and try, and get better. And at the end of the day, it is the longer you're around, the better you're going to be. And I think that's one thing in your situation is that to get somebody, one, who's going to be as talented as you are physically to come into the game, in the next year and actually have the reps or they don't need the amount of reps that you needed. It's not likely, and that's, but at the same time, you've got to have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, if I thought I was just going to go and win, I wouldn't bother with any of this, right?
Right.
Go and do it.
So,
and in some cases in Paralympic sport, I think that's happened over the past decade or two. There are just some classifications or certain events that just aren't mature enough yet.
Yeah.
And mine happens to be a mature event. David's and Jeremy's, that happens to be an event. Alid, sort of, he's got a couple of people that can roll with them, but not, he kind of blows them away.
Right.
So it's just the maturity and getting more athletes. I look forward to Paralympics over the next 10 years. I think it'll explode. I think
it's
a lot
blowing
of these
up.
kids have seen us.
Yeah, I think it's already starting to blow up. I think it's at a point now where it's also, I think, one, because of social media, but two, because the competition is more entertaining. It's like I watch it and I'm like, dude, this is the real deal. And guys like you and Alan and David and Jeremy are bringing the heat. And then you're like, oh, this is freaking, it's fun because it is, dude, it's entertainment at the end of the day. And the more entertaining the competitors are, the more people are going to be drawn to those events. I think, anyway.
Well, and the other thing is, I think specifically with the group of guys we're just talking about, think about how much closer. Think about your general idea of what a Paralympic athlete is, or disabled. We'll just call it disabled athlete for now. Think about this group that we're just talking about, and how much further along that is than your idea of a disabled athlete.
Yeah.
And how much closer we are to what an Olympic. We're never going to be Olympic level athletes, but think about how much closer we are. How many disabled athletes were cleaning 345, and probably everybody in that group of people we just talked about can do that.
Tamon can't clean 345.
But I'm just saying, like that. But that's how close we're coming.
Yeah, and what else is huge with what we're talking about is that the next generation of kids that are going to be adaptive are going to start earlier because they're going to realize, and this is where, people will talk shit on Instagram, they'll talk shit on Facebook, on the actual platform. They'll say, Facebook, social media, Twitter, it's all stupid. But at the end of the day, if I see you, or I see David, or I see Alan, and I've got that, I have some issue, whatever it is that I don't have a left arm, or I don't have a leg, whatever. Now I'm sitting there like, oh wait, I can do it. And I'm a 9-year-old kid. Well, now all of a sudden that 9-year-old kid, now they're sitting there going like, wow, I can do this. I think the linebacker, I think he played for the Seahawks. He went to Central Florida, but he's got
Shaquem Griffin.
Yeah, he doesn't have below his elbow, I believe.
And he's basically got everything up to, like, I don't know. He's got a little bit more than I do, so almost to his wrist, I think.
Okay. And I remember seeing a picture of him with another kid who's like 4 years old that had the same issue as him. And then there's a female I think she was on the U.S. women's team for soccer who had maybe the same thing with a cut off at the elbow or amputated at the elbow. And she was like doing an elbow bump to another younger kid. And what's cool about that is it's like, dude, now kids, because of social media, because of YouTube, it's like the whole world just blows up where it's like, oh, wow, my parents didn't really tell me I could do this stuff, you know? So now
Yeah.
they're going to get a jump start instead of competing at the age of 30. Now they might be starting it at the age of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the pieces that was missing maybe from when I was younger or people before me is they didn't have a community. They had communities to go to, but they were almost like feel sorry for you communities. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's get these kids together so they have somebody like them to hang out with.
Instead of pushing you.
And yeah. And now it's like, yeah, you get on there. You don't get away with just putting, I don't get away with just putting a cleanup on Instagram. Because now I'll get a bunch of guys that I know from either Team Star or Team USA or whatever, and they're like, that's obviously well off your one rep. Don't try to, don't put that on Instagram.
Right.
But the support system, the community system, and I think that's why a lot of good adaptive athletes came out of CrossFit, is because it just gave you a community, even if they weren't adaptive, it gave you a community of people who cared about what you were doing, wanted you to succeed, wanted you to excel. And I think that's why a lot of us came up through that. I came up through that, and I think it was great. I mean, you can hate on CrossFit all you want.
No, I agree with you.
Programming and all that other stuff, right? And I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying, like, the atmosphere.
In general, yeah. I agree with that.
That's the one thing you can't get that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost in parallel. They did a very good job. That program is a very good program, and they've done it's the same. It's almost in parallel with like women's weightlifting. As weird as it is, it's like they've blown up both adaptive sports and women's weightlifting essentially.
Yep.
All right, so
two groups who were underserved or underappreciated in terms of absolutely.
Before we do the actually, let's do the technique stuff. So is there when you're doing when you're training, are you trying to follow a technical model? Are you trying, from a technical perspective, like Coach Judge and you are sitting down, is it just Josh's technique, or is it like, well, Krauser, Kovacs, they do this, let's think about that and how we can implicate that?
That's a good question. I think maybe it started out as Larry's technical model, and I think we've kind of broken it into pieces, and now it's a reshaped Larry's model. And sometimes he'll just add something in. Like, we changed where I was standing, my standing position right before Parapans, and like all of a sudden I'm throwing further. And I don't know if it's just getting out of a mental block because you're tired of being in one thing, so you try something else and your body reacts. There's the natural reaction to it or what. But we never talk about a certain thrower or what they're doing. I mean, we may talk about what he's trying to do there, but we never talk about it in relation to what I'm doing. It's always one-off,
Right.
So there's no real technical model other than what his principles of throwing are.
Right. And it's just establishing these are the principles. Now, Josh, you got to execute these as effectively as we can.
Yeah, and I'll say the one good thing Larry does is he can break the throw into a bunch of micro pieces and then relate them back to what we're trying to do somewhere earlier in the throw or what we're trying to do for later in the throw.
Okay.
Yeah. And he does that better than most people I've talked to. And maybe I just haven't gotten that granular with other throws coaches, but he's been great for me. Just the way he coaches, what we talk about, how he breaks things down, his vernacular, all that stuff kind of works really well.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so my next question: you crush everything at Pan Am's. You break the world record. You win a world title. I want to know: do you have a ritual? Do you have like a competitive thing that you're doing the morning of, the day before? What are you doing? You're 36 hours out. You're 24 hours out from comp. What's your ritual? How do you compete at that level and get pushed at that level and still go out and drop monster bombs?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, it goes back. It really goes back to what Larry. I feel better when Larry tells me what we're going to do. And it's always the same thing, but it's good to have him 36 hours say, okay, we're finished with this workout. This is going to be our last full workout. Tomorrow we're going to do our meet warm up, our meet prep. and then we're gonna, get up and walk in the morning, whatever, and then we'll have a meal, and then we're gonna go throw. And then that's what we do. I mean, just to have the plan laid out, it's always good. I like to, even though I've thrown better later in the day, I like throwing earlier in the day because I'm not nervous when I get to the ring, but the hours before the ring, man, that's just like, and it's not nervousness, it's anxiety. I just want to get to the ring and I want to take care of business. But once I get to the ring, man, like everything's settled because Larry has set it up so that everything we need to know before we get in the ring is taken care of. The bills are paid, all that, the kids are taken care of and tucked in, all that kind of stuff. And then when we get to the ring, I just take a deep breath. I put my right foot in the middle of the ring, I take a deep breath, and then I throw it.
Right.
That should be the easiest part, right? That's everything else goes away.
Right.
You don't have to worry about anything else.
So I guess, I want you to, is there any specific advice then if you're thinking about like high school kids? Because a high school kid will go to, like, there's some meets they'll take 5 stands and then 1 full. And then some meets they'll go and they'll take 10 stands and 30 fulls. And it's like, is there any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. But so I think what happens is people try to do something different when they see all these guys at the meet doing something and they think that's what they need to do. Instead of just going back into their mental prep, which is, okay, when I warm up at school, I do 2 standing throws. I do, I do a couple pops off the chest. I do, just whatever their normal warm up is. When I get to the ring, that's exactly what I do. When I get to the warm up ring, I just do what I normally do. Then I don't have to think about it. There's nothing to consider. I'm going to do 2 of these. I'm going to do 3 of these. And if one of them was ugly, maybe he'll say, well, I want you to do 1 more. And then we'll just go through the list like we normally do. We'll take maybe 1 full throw before we get in the ring to compete. Because again, all that stuff should be paid. Meet day should be something that you don't have to think about. You should just be thinking about executing. And I think a lot of people get out of what they're used to doing, get out of there, or they don't have a routine at school to warm up. Their practice is just
it's just mayhem.
Get in the ring and throw. Okay, well, So I guess my advice would be just get yourself a program, something that you can do every single time, a model. Just start with something too. Maybe it won't work. There's a good chance that you start with something and maybe it's too many throws before you get into the competition. Okay, well then back it off 1 or 2 and then see. But go into every meet doing the same thing, or at least have a regimen that you're going to go in with.
And I guess that leads, into my next question. Is I think a lot of people get hung up on opponents, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you. Is like you've got guys that can hang, and you're going like, are you watching what they're doing, or are you just worrying entirely about yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up in an area of San Diego that was a little more rough, and so like I have this part of my attitude that's just like, I think when people are trying to bully, which happens at meets, like, you go to some of these international meets, they try to stare at you and bully you a little bit, try to make you feel a certain way, and I kind of like it because I just smile at them. What was the question? I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Just at a competition, are you checking?
Oh, the other. So this is the thing: is at Worlds, I was the 2nd smallest competitor there.
Okay.
Right.
Height wise, but you've got to be the widest.
No, I'm not the widest, but weight wise, I might be up in the middle somewhere. But I think a lot of like how you stand, how you look at things, how you grab your shot out of the rack. Like all those things matter. I'm never paying attention to anybody else. Because if I'm paying attention to what they're doing and they blast one off, well then I immediately go into, oh crap, now what do I do? Instead of, I'm going into the ring for the first throw and I'm trying to win it right now. That's my theory every single time I go to a meet is, I just want to put them away now.
Yep.
That doesn't always work, right? It may take 3 or 4 throws, or hopefully it doesn't take till the 6th round to do it. But no, I mean, you need every bit of your brain power focused on what you and your body need to do, not what the other competitors are doing. They're going to, hopefully they're screwing off and doing whatever. If they want to talk and chit chat and let them do that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's and that just goes back with the whole basis of the sport is it's reps. And the more you're competing with this focused preparation, the more that you're going to zero in on what that preparation needs to be. It goes back to that experiment. It goes back to what you did, to get to have a barbell to do a power clean. It's like experiment, play around with it, and you get thousands of reps. And in comps, you're not going to get thousands of reps, but you can get hundreds of attempts at a competition. And now you continue to refine what that competition ritual is, and then you can roll with it.
Well, and it might be a little bit different for me too. Is like we've been fortunate enough. I was at Drake last year to throw in the elite with all those guys, and I have no business being in that group of throwers. But to be in that group makes you feel a certain way. And then I go to Tucson the last 2 years and throw with those guys there. So to be in a place where I know everyone's better than me, and I don't need to focus on whether or not Krauser's going to throw past me. I'm positive he's going to do that. I don't need to worry about him, right? But yeah, I think if people would just focus on their own lane and focus on what's in front of them and focus on their training and how they can best apply that in the ring, I think they'd just be much better off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's focus on yourself, focus on the reps at hand in the through, focus on your lifts, and I think that's. I love the fact that you're sitting here going like, well, I mean, I back squat 605 and I can clean 345, and it takes years to get to that point. It's not just like I'm a junior in high school. I want to,
Well, here's the thing: is I don't know a whole lot different because almost all of this has been done by myself in this garage or by myself in a ring. Every day I go and throw. I exchange messages with Larry. He looks at the throw. He tells me what he thinks, whatever. But it's all pretty much been done just me in a bubble. So I don't know any different. I'm not competitive with anybody all day, so I'm not really worried about anybody else when I get to the ring either. So that's the other part of it is like, I don't really care what anybody else is doing because I've been focused on myself for so long.
Yeah,
that sounds narcissistic, but it's just I don't know how else there is. I don't know another environment that I could have been in. So,
but I also think that's very likely why you're as successful as you are is the fact that that's the freaking sport of throwing. It's you. Nobody else can impact, what you're doing. Yeah, at a point, maybe in round 6, Michelle Carter had a pretty significant impact on Valerie Adams in 2016. But it's one of those situations where 9 times out of 10, it's just you in the ring. And I think that bubble, like growing up and not even, not being around it as much, being a javelin and a sprinter beforehand, you weren't really as into, I will say though, you were a place kicker and dude, I think that mentality of a place kicker, if you're kicking field goals, it actually does transfer over to the throw
a little bit.
Well. So, but I think that you didn't know anything else. It's probably for the better and it's probably for the best. And I think that's one struggle that a lot of kids have, a lot of college kids, especially even because they're no longer playing those team sports. And when you leave that team sport where you're strategizing like how to handle somebody else, you almost innately do that when in reality, it's pretty clear it's not effective. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I just think it's interesting for me to see, I like to see how you compete and the results speak for themselves. It's like, all right.
Well, could you imagine if I went to Worlds and I looked at a 7'2", 350-pound guy, right? I mean, if that was my mentality and I'm focused on him, I already lost.
Yeah.
I look at the medal stand of Worlds, and I'm just like, I can't believe.
I think that was the only thing. I think when you sent a picture from Parapan, I think you'd commented like, dude, I look like a little person next to this guy.
Well, because I see sometimes you get these questions about like, well, I'm only I'm 5'10".
That was true actually. Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, that doesn't matter. You just put your work in. Don't worry about everybody else. There's so many people focused on the other throwers.
I did forget about that one specific comment, and I think I want to share that quick before we head out. Is that one of the things that Josh will, you sort of just pay attention a little bit, and you might send some comments in here for throws you for Q&As, and one of the things was if these guys knew that I'm competing against a 7-footer, you'd be diminished. You wouldn't even want to compete, but that's not
Right.
what matters. What matters is the work that you're going to do. It's the effort that you're putting in, and it's your own individual focus. Essentially, that's what gets you to become a world champion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've defeated yourself if that's where you're starting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this guy's he's physically more imposing than me. Then I guess I better just hang it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, Josh. Thanks for doing this. I'm glad we finally got you on the throw show.
I know. Yeah, it's good.
This is fun, and obviously I can't wait to see over the next year. I guess we still got 14 months. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we got a while.
Dude, it's crazy.
Ours are end of August is when they start.
End of August. So it's going to be crazy to see what happens. I mean, really. I mean, are you going to compete this summer at all?
You got me. I have no idea. I mean, hopefully there'll be some more virtual meets that are up.
And that's if it gets lifted. If the quarantine gets lifted.
Yeah. Hopefully, Vallejo did their one earlier. I would have loved to, but it was like, I don't know, 25 degrees here.
It was quite cold for sure. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for doing this. I love this conversation. I think this is big. It's good for people to know who you are, but also to hear your message and worry about yourself. Just train.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I appreciate you being involved with para athletes just in general, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I told Coach Joe when I was on Grow Big So Far, like I don't think some of the coaches realize how invested some of these athletes are in the content that you guys create. And so, you've got an exponential reach that you don't maybe understand sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's been good, and I appreciate it, and I know the other athletes who pay attention appreciate it. So
I value that. Now, let us know what is where can people find you and what you're involved with outside of your everyday job.
Yeah, well, my name is all of my Instagram, Facebook, all that junk, and then also I'm an executive director for Team Some Assembly Required, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's all adaptive athletes, and essentially what we do is we take athletes to events that are mainly able-bodied, and we just try to kick the shit out of the people that are there. I mean, it started out as a way for us to prove that we deserved an opportunity to compete in CrossFit, and that's kind of expanded into a lot of different sports. Highland Games, what I'm doing with Paralympics. There's people doing jiu-jitsu. We're spread across the board and involved in a lot of different sports, and so. What we do is just try to help people financially get to those places, maybe offer up a little bit of opportunity for them to be in the news or whatever it is. So we're just trying to expand the reach of adaptive athletics like all of us are trying to do. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh, thanks for being on. And
yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
I'll see you in the DMs.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. I'll see you.
All right, man.